This is the Always Direct podcast, and we talk with movers and shakers of this world to learn about the ups and downs they went through to get where they are now. Let's get started with the show.
Hey, Don, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Good. All right, guys. This show is being sponsored by Always Direct Mail. This is the Always Direct podcast. Everybody needs a little direct mail in their life if they own a business. If you have a groomer, a gym, auto repair facility, a restaurant, a pizzeria, a salon, it doesn't matter. You are trying to target customers in a certain area. There's nothing more powerful than direct mail. And nowadays, people are not using direct mail as much, so the mailbox is becoming a lot more empty, which gives you more impact on the customers you're going after. My guest today is Don Zorbas. He's a friend of mine. He's my personal trainer, and he's a really great guy with lots of knowledge in a lot of different industries. He's a graduate of film school. He's worked as a ghostwriter and a second unit director on some of the biggest budget horror films there are. After graduating, he went on to be a PA on several projects around the Chicagoland area. He wrote and directed an award-winning short film called Slaves of the Beast. From there, he went to Hollywood, where he participated on a pair of films, one by Twisted Picture and the other by Brett Ratner. He now owns a gym called DZ Boot Camp in Streamwood, Illinois, and he is an online coach and personal development coach as well, nutrition specialist, and he has personally helped me lose 20 pounds, and I still have a lot more to go, and he has been nothing but amazing. So, Don, thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm honored.
Yeah, man, you got some, we're busy working, right? Working me out, and music's going, so we don't get enough time. We talk, we chit-chat a lot of current events. You're a history buff. You love history. But one of the things that we don't really get a chance to do is talk about your past directing and film. Are you still writing right now?
Absolutely.
What are you writing? Like, are you working on multiple projects? Or are you just doing it as a side hustle? Is that your main thing? Tell me about it.
Well, it's one project, and it's a science fiction script called The Creator, and I've been working on it. I started it back about 7-8 years ago. It was called something else. And it was called The Cryptid. And it went through some pretty big agencies out in LA, and obviously was turned down. And the guy I was working with, this producer, kind of like made The Cryptid what it was. And then, like, for myself, I wasn't really feeling it. So I'm no longer associated with that producer. And I'm kind of doing things myself now. There is another producer I'm talking to, but I went a different route. I love all genres, but I love horror movies, but I like the science fiction element with horror movies. And I love things with substance to them as far as the horror genre. Okay. So, like The Thing, something like that, The Blob. Something that you can explain it to where there is some believability. I think that's why, I love, for instance, like Star Trek and Star Wars. I love both, no question about it. But Star Trek is unique because they'll explain to you how they go into warp speed. They'll explain to you how they can perform the teleportation. Star Wars doesn't. So I like things like that. But anyways, I'm working on that now, and then I'm going to shoot a short film this year.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going to shoot a short this year, and it's going to probably be from one of my past scripts. I have a total of 7-8 scripts, and it's going to probably be a scene from one of those. And my goal is to obviously get in film festivals and then try to raise money to do the feature. So
wait, so that's how it works. Okay, so because you're talking to people who we don't know anything. You're talking. It's like alien talk right now.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
you write down a script. Okay. You put together a story. You then, or you create like an outline. You put it together. Then you start filling it in with characters and the peak and the valleys and whatever they call them, the protagonist and antagonist,
Right.
and all the problems that they have to solve together, and then the ending, the beginning, and then you write it all out, and then you take it and you submit the script to a festival where they compare it to other scripts and they choose one or two.
You can do
Give
that.
it an award.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I've done it before, and I won an award. I wrote a script on Columbine, and I won an award on that. Nowadays it's a little more different.
Scriptalooza, right?
Scriptalooza, correct? Yeah, I was a runner-up in that in 2014. See, nowadays that's a great question, John. Nowadays it's a little different because nowadays, like, it's Disney, it's Netflix, it's Amazon, okay, that kind of control everything. So in a perfect world, you want to get it to those type of establishments, okay?
How do you do that? How do you do that? Do you need a liaison, or can you just email it to them?
Well, the film festivals is one. The networking is crucial. And you could do something with the query letter where you send out an email and you tell them who you are really briefly and give them a small synopsis of the screenplay. And then at the very end of it, you kind of thank them for reading the email and then ask them, would you like me to send you the email? So that's the old-fashioned way. But the good news is nowadays, John, is that, the film cameras are a lot cheaper. They're more accessible. And you can actually go shoot your project for something that that's a fraction of the budget. 25 years ago, like right now I could go shoot a short film, a good one, for a couple grand. 25 years ago, it wouldn't be under $100,000. You see what I'm saying? So times have changed, but anyways, like those big studios, your traditional Hollywood and now like Netflix and Amazon, they have the money to do the distribution. And the distribution is the crucial element to the picture because, you can have the best screenplay, you can have the best film, but if it never sees the day of light, it's going to be hard, making a living, doing this. Yeah. I mean, if you want to do a hobby, if you want to make it a hobby, that's great. But this is an industry where, you can turn it into a career. And the best way of doing that is, my thing, I don't believe in luck. I believe in good timing. I believe in timing. It comes down to timing. Okay. And I think the best way to do it is, like you said, you create a script, you put it together, and then you could either submit it to film festivals, do the query letter, or take a scene from that script and go shoot a short. Okay. And then send it out to festivals. You go out to festivals, you pray to God you get in. And then, you do the network. And like, I'll give you, like, here's one thing you don't do. Okay. This is one thing you don't do. So if you go ahead and let's say you raise $10,000 to shoot a feature. Okay. You can do it. Or even $5,000. Okay. Well, actually, let's bring it up a little. Let's say $25,000. Okay. Cause that's a little more for a feature, like an independent feature. One of the worst things you could do is not have a distribution plan before you start. Okay. That's because you have to figure out a way as best as possible how you're going to return your investment. But the worst thing you can do is say you're going to get into Sundance. And Sundance is Sundance and the Cannes Film Festival, but especially Sundance because it really draws independence, is the World Series of film festivals. That's the one Robert Redford owns. And a lot of great films have come out of there. The most big one is
Robert Redford owns the Sundance?
Yes. Yeah, that's his. Because he was in a movie in the late 60s called Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. So he named it after his character, Sundance Kid. Yeah. So, he created that back in 1980. As far as like a platform to allow new voices to obviously go out there and express their work. But I remember when I went to film school, I was definitely one of those people that are like, hey, you know what? I want to make a film. I'm going to get into Sundance. And that's all she wrote. Well, it's literally, if you look at the numbers, it's like, I don't know exactly, but it's insane. It's like thousands and thousands, thousands of submissions, and like 70 films get picked. So yeah, you could try it. You have to try, but that's a lottery ticket. Okay.
But isn't the whole going into acting, going into directing, going into producing, isn't that whole thing a long shot?
It is. It's extremely competitive.
Yeah, it's like saying you want to be a rock star. It's
yeah.
You could
Yeah.
be, but you might also have a lot of lean years in between.
Exactly. So, like for me, of course, like, every kid that comes out of every person that comes out of film school, every kid that comes out of film school, they want to be Steven Spielberg. They want to be Francis Ford Coppola, and at heart, I would love to be my version of those guys. But you get to a point where you say, you know what, you begin to understand things more, and you say, okay, you want to make your own work, and you get to a point like, okay, maybe I don't have to hit the pinnacle, but at least if I can try to make a living, that's ideal. But it does happen. People do make it, but like I said, I am a firm believer that you have to spend hours and hours and hours of mastering your craft. Okay. And the networking is crucial. I mean, you have to find ways to really throw your stuff out there. So in other words, there's a good and bad with having access to the equipment. The good is you can go out and shoot something that costs a fraction compared to 20 years ago. But the problem is the market is saturated. So
you might make a good film, but if you got no place to actually send it out, it doesn't matter. If somebody's not going to take it to the next level for you, because it's almost impossible for you to do it yourself. There's no.
Yeah, there's a.
Can't do it yourself, can you? The distribution.
It's hard. No, you can't. You can't. I mean, there's everybody kind of finds someone, to kind of like for us when we worked on the, when I worked on the two movies when the ones I was a ghostwriter on, we had a guy that knew the studios, knew the agencies. It was a huge contact when we went out to LA. And when we went out to LA, we had an advantage. I'll never forget it. We were at the Beverly Hills Hotel. It was really historic. You see movie stars all the time there. And we were sitting in the lobby, and I remember the guy telling us, you have an advantage because, like I said, when we got there, we already had capital. 90% of the town doesn't have what you have as far as people trying to make it is the capital.
Sure.
And unfortunately, that still doesn't guarantee it. Because, again, if you don't make, like William Friedkin, one of my favorite filmmakers, he directed The Exorcist, The French Connection, To Live and Die in L.A. And if you listen to his commentaries on like DVDs or Blu-rays, I'm telling you, it's like better than going to film school. He's very articulate. He's sharp, and he explains everything. And he's actually from Chicago. But anyways, he's a guy that has a line that says, the movie gods. And the movie god, and what he means by that is all the pieces have to come into place for that movie to become, I like to use the word magic. It becomes magic, because I remember talking to Rebecca De Mornay on the set of Mother's Day, one of the films I worked on. I was a ghostwriter on, and I produced. And we were at a pre-production party, and she was in she's in my favorite, probably my favorite Tom Cruise movie, Risky Business. And I'm the guy, and I end up directing her scene actually in the movie. I worked with her, so I was really starstruck. But I love having that feeling. But anyways, I was like, oh my God, Risky Business, this and that, whatever. And at the place, she was explaining to me that Risky Business was one of those things, again, simple script, but you had the right actor, the right director, the music, and it all came together. And the movie gods, they made it work. And I'll never forget this. She said one of the movies she did afterwards, I don't remember the movie, but she said it had the perfect director, perfect actor, perfect score, distribution deal, you name it. And
it bombed.
It did.
Man,
yeah,
scary.
So
it's scary.
It is. It's scary. So it's even more scary, John, when you have money involved.
Sure.
Right? Yeah.
They need their money.
Yeah.
People need their money back.
Exactly. And you know what? Like, one of the books I read said, you got to remember, like, when you're going to, like William Friedkin says, movies are strictly for entertainment. They are not made to be hung up in a museum. Okay? He's right. Yeah. And what I took from that is, you're going to go to investors and you're going to try to get money. And that's as risky as it comes as far as movie, where they can go get property and have something to show for it. Done deal. So you almost have to make sure that art is not, it cannot be solely for you. It needs to be commercial. Now, so, some artists don't think like that. And again, it works for them. Well,
a lot of times it works after they die and people find out about it.
Yeah, exactly. But that's a process, it's, it's another great director, Frank Darabont, who directed The Shawshank Redemption.
Oh yeah. Great movie.
Great movie. Brilliant writer. Very, another guy, very articulate. He said, somebody asked him like about making it in Hollywood, and he's like, no person has the same story. Everybody did something different. So that's why I'm a firm believer you got to try everything. Like in my case, I was working at a gym. I graduated from film school. Actually, I was going to film school, and I was working at a gym called Powerhouse Gym in Elgin. And this is before I started writing. At that time, I just wanted to be a film director. I was working behind the counter, and I just became a trainer. I started out working behind the counter, then became a trainer. And one day, I go in there, and my coworker goes, "Hey, a guy called who said he was looking for a trainer." I'm like, "All right." So I called the guy, and he wanted me to come out to him.
And now also, just so whoever's listening, so they know, you're also a bodybuilder. I mean, now you're fit, but you used to be a bodybuilder. You were jacked.
Yeah. I was probably about 30, 40 pounds heavier. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen pictures. You were. I mean, you're still very healthy. Obviously, you're still a personal trainer, but you're not like in the bodybuilding mode. Where you're eating 4,000 calories a day. I don't know how many calories you used to eat, but I'm sure it was a lot.
Yeah, it was about 3,000. It was about 3,000, 4,000 calories, and I was really into it. And I still love it. I still love to train. I still love to eat.
You were going on stages? You were actually competing?
I did it. Well, I did it once. Back in Elgin, and it was kind of like a little event among the Powerhouse Elgin, like the staff, the members, and everything. Sure. But it was legit. There was prize money and everything. I mean, I didn't do too good, but I didn't really prepare. But I was a smaller guy. I'm 5'6", 5'7", but
it's more of a passion project. Your exercise, your bodybuilding wasn't to actually be a bodybuilder. That was your passion. Working out was your passion.
Well, it's a great question, John. What happened is in bodybuilding, number one, you have to for being a smaller guy. I did have pretty decent genetics because I did have a smaller waist, a wide clavicle for a guy under 6 foot, and I was always strong with my benches and stuff. But in bodybuilding, number one, you have to. It's like trying to be in the major leagues. You have to possess superior genetics. And what I mean by that, like a guy that can just have a 20-inch arm and just look at dumbbells. Then there's the drug side to it. Okay, and and nowadays, or even back then, 20 years ago, there was insulin, there's growth hormones. So I had to make a decision where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do that. I mean, I love it. I'm going to train to the day I die, I'm going to train heavy. I'm going to do whatever, but I don't know if I'm willing to do that.
You don't want to go as extreme as the rest of those guys.
No,
it's not worth it for you.
No. And like I said, I love it more than anything. It's my second passion, but the movies was always first. Okay. But anyways, you know, I called the guy and I went to his house. He lived in a gated community, huge house, like a 12 to $15 million house. I didn't know who this guy was. And he's like, I want you to train my son. I'm like, all right. But he interviewed me. And when he interviewed me, I told him I go to film school. And then right there, John, he goes, well, my son is interested in filmmaking. There you go. Serendipity. Right.
Oh.
Man. Yeah. And I wasn't very, I'm still not really, but I mean, well, I was worse when I was younger. I wasn't one of those sharp guys when I was younger. I was one of those, it took a few days, you know, but a normal guy, sharp guy, right, would have been like, oh boy, now it's my meal ticket, or I'm going to capitalize on it. I wasn't thinking that. What happened is we built a genuine friendship. And then one day I got a call while I was working at the gym, and because the kid I was training was younger than me, he was ready to move out to LA. And the dad calls and he's like, hey, you want to go out with my son? And I'm like, well, what am I going to do out there? He's like, I'll tell you what, you know, the first year you don't have to worry about rent. I was like, oh, okay. You know, because I was older, so he wanted a big brother, little brother relationship. And, you know, I always say this to people about people that are against college degrees. I love telling this story because I still think to this day, well, I know for a fact, the reason why I got that phone call is because I had a film degree. Because the dad knew there was a seriousness to filmmaking.
Sure.
It wasn't my friendship. That I'm sure that helped, but he's not going to just give that opportunity to anybody. So so you could say it's a little luck, sure, but I created, you know, I think I brought my end of the bargain. But anyways, that's how the relationship started. So as far as networking, you know, there's going to be some breaks, there's going to be some fun, but point is, John, is that in that particular case, you know, just things happen. But that doesn't happen all the time. So that's why you gotta go out there as much as possible, you know?
Sure. You gotta put yourself out there as much as possible.
You gotta do it, you know? And, you know, but, yeah, we're still friends to this day, you know? And, you know, it was a great thing, you know? And then, like I said, then, you know, we built a friendship, then we went out and we created a short film. You know, I wrote it.
The name?
The Slaves of the Beast.
Slaves of the Beast.
Slaves of the Beast. You know, and it's about a serial killer and a hitman that go for a ride one night on this desolate road. You know, the serial killer picks up the hitchhiker, and they don't know each other's backgrounds. And they get into this in-depth conversation, and then there's just a little twist at the end. But anyways, it won some big film festivals. It won a big one in LA called Action on Film Festival. And I'll tell you, it was huge. You know, John Saxon, the guy that was in the Bruce Lee movies, and he was in Nightmare on Elm Street. He was there to collect the award. Saw him, got a little starstruck again. But I remember, like, it was like Academy Awards, like white tablecloth, and everybody was dressed up when the awards came. And then
it must have been really exciting.
Well, let me tell you, John, like, it was one of the best moments in the history of my life. I mean, when they said best horror film, we all erupted, and it was magical. But you know, we did that, and then we raised money, you know, we collaborated, we met some people, and then that's when we began to make some moves in LA. You know, we raised a lot of money. We raised over $10 million, and we went ahead and produced a couple movies with Twisted Pictures and Brett Ratner. Brett Ratner, you know, is a dynamite guy. And I knew, you know, again, these are people I remember, like, listen, you know what's unique for me, and I'm sure it is for most people, but these are people that I emulated in film school when I was younger, whatever. I knew about them, and then it was mind-boggling when I would meet them. And Brett Ratner, I remember I went to a test screening with him when we did the second movie, Mother's Day. And, you know, he did the Rush Hour movies. He did Red Dragon, you know, and I was really impressed by, like, you know, the way he knew cinema and what he had to say. But yeah, you know what? Like, I think to me, the best thing you can do is to hone your craft and keep practicing away. But like I said, the hustle. You know, there's a fantastic book out there. I think it's called Conquering Hollywood by Gary Goldman, and he's the producer of Pretty Woman. And in that book, that gives you a blueprint of how to go about things. But in the book, there is a section in the book where he says, I hate to tell you guys, talent doesn't beat hard work, because if that was the case, there wouldn't be so many bad films out there. It's a legitimate argument.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, you know, it was a great experience, you know, and, you know, I every so often, you know, I see the movie on Netflix, both movies, you know, and, you know, I'm getting ready to, you know, to do this short. And, you know, I learned a lot, you know, because after the movies too, I was a production assistant, and I worked on the second Transformers movie. I worked on a film with Patrick Swayze before he passed away. And that's all great learning experience, you know. But again, you know, I can't stress, you know, the network and constantly being involved, you know, constantly like understanding what's going on. And, you know, there's, you know, and because of like Netflix and these powerhouse companies, there's a new word out there called filmpreneur. Film, like, it's supposed to be like entrepreneur, but it's for filmmakers.
Sure, filmpreneur or whatever, yeah.
Filmpreneur, yeah. And I think a guy named Alex Ferrari came up with it, and he comes up, he has these great, he's got a book out there, and he's a very sharp guy. And he talks about, like, you have to create a film. Like, his theory is this, and this is good for people listening. He has a theory, kind of like a business, where you have to find your own niche when you make a film. Because the more you do that, the greater it is. And it's a little more intense. And this is what I mean. You can't just make it. When I say niche, it doesn't mean genre. He suggests that, okay, in my case, I own a gym. I'm into bodybuilding. So if I made a film about bodybuilders, okay, if I made a film about direct mail, okay, a group of people in corporate America in this small direct mail business, and they were animated, and, you know, and they were larger than life characters, but I had that direct mail backdrop, chances are it's going to reach more people than just, say, a horror movie where a group of kids go on a lake and they get killed. And the reason why is because of Netflix, because of Hollywood, because of Amazon. They control the platform. Yeah. Because of the amount of money they have behind distribution. But if you can make a movie about surfers, okay, if you can make a movie about vegans and, like, put your own spin on it, that's one way to go. And I agree with that. I really agree with that, you know. Or if you can make a movie about filmmakers and, you know, and make it, you know, creative and entertaining, you know, that could help with your odds.
Definitely, you know? Definitely. Finding your voice, finding a niche, something that's where you can get intimate with. Yeah.
So, you know what, John, like, it's kind of like any business, but, you know, but obviously that's, you know, when you're dealing with art, you know, it's kind of, it's highly competitive and it's completely subjective. And back to what Frank Darabont said, you know, there's really no way you could say, I'm going to do it like this guy did it that worked for him. I personally think you have to try everything.
Yeah.
And it's got to be consistent, and you know, and there's got to be a lot of rejection. You know, I remember I hand out hundreds of query letters, and I got one response. And he's like, yeah, let me see the script. And then, of course, I never heard back from the guy, you know. But I'll tell you something. The fact that Yeah, I know, right? The fact
But
that
it's normal. It's normal. That's
the fact that the gentleman said, "Hey, Don, I love the title. I love the story, and the story is it's actually a feature of slaves. Instead of slaves of the beast, it's slaves to the beast. And what it is it's basically about this white supremacist that goes in for a heart transplant, and the donor happens to be an African American, and the doctor doesn't tell him. And then when he gets the transplant, he morphs into a different person. Okay,
his personality changes. You mean
everything? He goes from being a white supremacist to, I mean, he's still flawed. Don't get me wrong, but to understand that that's not the way to think. As a matter of fact, he falls in love with a black woman. Okay, but anyways,
this is a good movie for right now to be made.
Yeah. At the time, I remember sending it to an agent, and the guy was calling me. He's like, you don't want the word slaves in there if you're going to make a movie about this. And I'm like, oh, okay, what? There's so many things they think about because they think about marketing. For instance, like when we did the Columbine script, we were this close from getting it off the ground. And at the last second, a distributor got scared and said, oh, I don't know, man. This is a while ago. He's like, I don't think we're going to sell it. I don't think we'll book it in the theaters. But they love the script, and they're ready to do it. $3 million budget, but they backed off at the last second. And I understand. Wow. Yeah. A little heartbreaking, but hey, that's part of the game. But anyways, that's the story. And the agent was like, let me read it. Apparently he didn't like it, or he probably saw the other flaws the other gentleman saw. But my point is that when I got that reply back, there was like this shudder of electricity in the room. Like, sure. Oh man, so if I give up, it just, it wouldn't happen, and then who knows, sometimes, that voice in your head, it could be negative, but you got to cut it off, So, I think the most important thing, like for me, John, is a lot of guys I worked with that second film, they're no longer in the film industry or they're not aspiring like me. And I think a lot of them, the passion is not as great. If my thing is that if you're truly passionate about something, it doesn't feel like work, and you'll do it whether you get paid or not. Me, every day I'm writing, and I'm reading scripts, and I love it, and, I have my goal, but if it doesn't work out, hey, it's not meant to be. But either way, if you're passionate about it, you're not going to stop. And I think some people I've run into throughout the years, they have that issue. And it's going to be hard, to be to come in day in and day out to stare at a screen. And I don't care, and I've heard this 100 times. I know it happens to me all the time. The doubts. Who are you kidding? Come on, whatever. And for the longest time, that voice was always in there. But then when I'm always reading books on screenwriters and autobiographies, you begin to understand you're not alone. This is how they all think. That's actually the normal way to think, So, but yeah, it's, if you're truly passionate about it, you can't ever let anyone influence your decisions, your thought process. If that's what you want to do, you got to do it.
Absolutely, Don. That's a great point. And I don't care if you're talking about owning a restaurant or your own small business, owning a gym, being a director, starting a podcast, starting a YouTube channel, getting married, having kids, starting up anything. The imposter syndrome, the fear, all your fears built into one, constantly questioning you and telling you not to do it. It's a constant battle, and really, everybody has them. The difference is the people who ignore it and push past it, that voice becomes less and less significant over time. Every day you have to get up and ready to fight that fight that monster in the head. And
Absolutely.
slowly it becomes less and less powerful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know what, John, like, I mean, like, even, you know, like somebody like you, you know, who has a lot of businesses going on, and, you know, you're a young guy, and, you know, that's very impressive in its own right, you know, and, you know, being around people like that, okay, is a crucial thing, because, you know, you, even though you don't mean to do it, but you help people, you blossom people, you make them grow even more. When they see you in action, a successful guy like you, they see you in action that's passionate about things, that understands things, you know, it moves you more. You know, it's done for me. I know it has for a lot. I'm sure a lot people have felt that a lot, and I know I definitely feel that around you. And that's hard to find. That's very hard to find because of what you said. People, they let that voice get the best of them, you know. And my thing is this: is that, like me, I had a self-esteem problem, a very bad one, when I was younger. And, you know, I had some things, you know, I was picked on, even by family members, you know, but I was picked on.
Sometimes sometimes the family members are the worst.
Yeah, I know. You know, and, you know, one thing that happened is it stripped my dignity away. It stripped my self-worth away. When you say imposter syndrome, definitely. And the problem was, for me, it happened when I was a kid. And then, you know, when you're at that 7, 8, 9 age, that's a crucial age. A lot of, you know, experts say, because that's when you're learning and you're like a sponge. But anyways, make a long story short, I mean, I still had a great childhood because of the movies, and just, I grew up in the 80s, and my parents were unbelievable, and my sister. But there was that, part of my life that, you know, all that was taken away. And how did I regain it? Through working out, without question. And I grew up in the 80s, so there was always an infatuation, and being a shorter, smaller guy, you know, I graduated high school 119 pounds, you know, and, you know, and I'm, like I said, I'm about 5'7". So, you know, I obviously didn't like the way I looked. And I grew up with the Rocky movies, right? The Rambo movies and the Arnold movies, you know. So that was a period where there was muscular physiques everywhere. But I remember my senior year in high school when I wrestled. We went to this high school. It was Conant High School. It's a upper class school in Schaumburg. And they had this gym on the second floor, and it looked like a Gold's Gym. Okay, I went to Streamwood High School, which was a nice school, but our gym didn't look like that. But I remember, like, I was in the middle of a wrestling meet, and I wasn't that good of a wrestler. You know, I didn't have that confidence, you know. So somebody said, "Hey, man, you're going to be fighting Johnny Smith," you know, the night before. I'd have a hard time sleeping because I was so paranoid, and I didn't believe in myself. But anyways, during that meet, there was a couple matches going on, and I saw the gym, and I went up there all alone. There was a cage, and the door was open. So I was like, oh man. So I went in there, and again, by this time, I started collecting my muscle magazines. Or I would always be at 7-Eleven looking at the muscle magazines. And I went up there, and then I'm like looking, and it was just me in the gym. And I remember, like, there was just like a little 10-pound dumbbell, and I grabbed it. And I just remember, like, I didn't say it obviously, but it was my head. But I was like, I can get into this, you know. I can do this.
This is going to be part of me now.
Yeah, you know. And it was weird because, and that, again, it goes back to the whole passion thing. I didn't have that for wrestling. I did wrestling the first time in 7th grade on JV.
It's good to build the confidence through wrestling. Even if you're not good at it, if you're not naturally, you're scared. I mean, I don't know anybody who's not freaking out before every match, even experienced people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it's weird, you know. And you're right. The 7th grade, I loved it, John. But when I got into high school, you know, I didn't take it seriously, you know, and it was my fault and whatnot. But I knew that that time, like when I was up there in that gym, I'm like, there was something magical there. So, so when I talk to people in the books I read, in the seminars a couple I've been to, I mean, if anyone's going to know this, it's going to be you, my friend, is that you have to be passionate about what you're doing, and, you're passionate, then, you're going to go the distance.
Yeah. You're more likely to go the distance.
You're more likely, man. You're going to die, you're going to, in the store,
Well, that's what Steve Jobs says that. I mean,
yeah.
The reason why people say that, they say that you almost have to be passionate. It's cliche, but you have to be passionate about what you're doing. And the reason why is because it's so unbelievably effing hard to do anything, really, to scale or to build something. The amount of work involved, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
And, it's just constant problems and struggles and struggles that turn into bigger problems. And the more money you have, the more success you have, the more problems you have. And so it doesn't end. But if you don't like what you're doing, there's no way. He said there's just no way you could do it, because how could you get through those tough times, those terrible times, those downfalls, those mistakes, the lack of money, if you're not able to, if you don't like what you're doing to begin with. It just smooths it over a little bit. It just helps you get through because you enjoy what you're doing. But Don, I just want to say real quick. Oh, you got some loud speaker, some loud card next to you over there?
Oh, he drove off. Sorry. Yeah.
No, I will say this. So right now you have a gym called Don Zorbas. What is it? Zorbas Boot Camp, right? DZ Boot Camp. Sorry, because you also have DZ Nutrition as well.
Zorbas Nutrition.
Zorbas Nutrition.
Yeah.
Okay, I just DZ for Don Zorbas. I actually never look at the sign when I go there. I go there 4 times a week. I never look at the sign. Don Zorbas, Zorbas Nutrition, dzbootcamp.com.
Correct. Yes.
And you know what's fascinating about your business? Number one, and I'm segueing into this because we're going to be ending soon. I know you're busy. You have other clients to deal with, and I just wanted to point this out, is that during this whole coronavirus, you've opened my eyes to this a whole new way of training. You train a lot of clients over Zoom, okay? Right? So like they could be anywhere in the world and you can train them through Zoom.
Yes.
And most importantly is you have them download nutrition apps where they can keep track of their daily intake, which is what I did, which is what I do. I have been slacking a little bit, so we'll talk about that when we're done with this. But what a very important, amazing way of keeping track of your clients is through the app, keeping track of what they're eating every day, the amount of calories, fats, micros, macros, all that stuff that I've never kept track of in my life. And yet also they can be anywhere in the world. So you could, anytime, any day, in their living room, in Sweden, in Canada. Don't you have a client in Canada or no?
I do.
That's amazing.
Winnipeg.
It's amazing. You're not limited to the Streamwood, Illinois area. So anybody listening here who's interested in having a coach that is, I mean, he's a great guy, all right? But not only that, but he keeps track of your food, which is 90% of the work. I mean, working out, it's very important. But if you eat like crap, it doesn't matter. That's what I've learned. I mean, I lost 20 pounds in the last 2.5 months, and my wife is amazed. All my old clothes, my skinny clothes, because everybody who's big has that. The skinny clothes is fitting me. So, it's pretty impressive. And so he runs a gym out of Streamwood, Illinois, which I go to. And I'm not, just trying to plug him, but I want you guys to know that he's available if you're interested through Zoom if you don't live in the area. Or if you do live in the area, you can go visit him. It's dzbootcamp.com. And is there a phone number?
Yeah, it's 630-660-2804.
Okay, can you say it one more time?
Sure, 630-660-2804.
All right, Don. We're gonna have another one. We're gonna do another one of these, okay? But not right now. In a little bit. I really learned a lot about your. You have a very interesting life. I mean, from bodybuilding to filmmaking to script writing. Are you a ghostwriter?
I am. Yeah, I was a ghostwriter on a couple movies.
I know somebody who's looking for a ghostwriter. Would you be
Oh,
interested?
okay. Sure, absolutely.
My goodness.
Absolutely.
And now you own your own business. You're an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and you have a nutrition company.
Yes, I do.
Wow. I mean, you're doing a lot of things right now too.
Yeah, I'm trying, John. I'm trying, and it's, like I said, I'm very passionate. I would, the gym had a huge impact in my life, and I would like to serve people in that way, So.
I love it. I love it.
All right.
All right, Don, thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. You take care.
All right.
It was fun.
Thanks for listening to the Always Direct podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.